Gotta let that cook. Yeah.
Time keeps on slipping.
Go ahead, sing it, man.
I'm not even listening to it yet. Into the future.
Welcome back to the Blaine and Mickey Show. I'm Brad Hopkins filling in for Mr. Mickey Ryan. Blaine Bishop plays himself today. And we are now joined by GoVols247's very own Ben McKee. He's here to help break the news about Nico. Hold on now. Iamaleava. Yes!
No, that wasn't right.
Is it right?
Iamaleava.
That's what I said. No?
You was getting too excited too soon. You thought he scored a touchdown and he fumbled at the goal line.
Come on, Ben McKee. How was I on the pronunciation? Was I close?
80.
You were close. Not completely spot on. It was Iamaleava.
That's what I said, didn't I?
Very, very close, which I think is better than a whole lot of people.
That's why I don't
Blaine
even
said.
attend.
Yeah, he said that's what he just called Nico. But obviously, there are a lot of people, more than just Vols fans, that can't wait to see this kid take the field consistently. I know 4 games is what he filled in for this last season. But what about the decision to start him this weekend? Where did it come from? Blaine and I were bantering that back and forth here before the show started. Where did that decision to start Nico come from?
Well, from my understanding, it comes from Joe Milton. And Joe Milton not wanting to, or I shouldn't say not wanting to, because I'm sure if he didn't have a lot on the line, I'm sure he would love to play in the football game. But contrary to popular belief, he is a quarterback prospect for the 2024 NFL draft. And sure, he's not going to be a first-round pick or second-round pick. I don't know if he'll be a third-round pick. Maybe he'll have a great draft process and skyrocket up the boards. We obviously know he has the natural talent, the natural arm strength, and he is pretty charismatic, so I'm sure he will impress in his interviews. But he is going to be a draft pick. It's just a matter of when and probably a late-round draft pick. So playing against one of the best defenses in the entire country in Iowa behind a patchwork offensive line, because the injury bug has really bitten Tennessee's offensive line. There's going to be I saw some people on Twitter saying they can't wait to see Nico behind the first-team offensive line, and technically it will be the first-team offensive line, but also it technically won't be because half of the first-team offensive line is going to be out with an injury. So I think going up against one of the best defenses in the country behind a patchwork offensive line that may struggle in this football game, it could lead to an injury or a poor performance that hurts your draft stock. So I know a lot of people hate the college football day and age that we live in, but that's part of it nowadays. And from a pure business decision, I think Joe decided he did not want to play in this football game. So Joe Milton made the decision for Tennessee by opting out of this game, and then Nico was QB2 all season long, and now it's his turn to run the show.
Word around the campfire is that Nico's running of this offense will resemble more of what Hendon Hooker did when the Vols were, at least at one point, the number one offense in college football. What do you think ushering in a new era would look like with Nico at center? And what kind of stock should we put in his performance against Iowa? Should we not get ahead of ourselves, good or bad?
No way.
Well, I do think that is a pretty loaded question. I just talked about the offensive line and it being banged up right now. So I think it's kind of a yes and a no to your question. Yes, I do think you could take away quite a bit if he comes out and performs well against, again, one of the best defenses in the country behind an offensive line that's really banged up right now. I think that would be very telling in terms of projecting him to next season and what he's going to be able to do as a redshirt freshman in 2024. But also on the other hand, if he comes out and if he's struggling because he doesn't have time to throw the football and just they can't establish the running game, again, not only is Tennessee's offensive line banged up right now, but they're going to be without Jalen Wright as well, who I think was Tennessee's best football player this season. He opted out and he's declared for the NFL draft. And Dylan Sampson, very serviceable. Cam Seldon, a young, exciting freshman running back that they can't wait to watch play these next couple of years. But Javari Small, a veteran back who was RB2, RB3, kind of splitting snaps with the other two, and Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson. He's opted out of the bowl as well. So if Nico doesn't have time to throw the football and they're struggling to establish the run, I don't know that next Tuesday is going to be or Monday, I guess it is. I don't know that that's going to be a fair grading scale if he is struggling in the game because, again, the O-line that's banged up is struggling to protect, or as you two know, it's hard to really get into any rhythm on offense when you can't establish the run and are one-dimensional. So if those lead to his struggles, then okay, then let's not overreact. Now, if he's throwing it into triple coverage left and right and making poor decisions over and over and over, then okay, maybe it's fair to react at that point. But I think you're probably going to see a mix of both. I think you're going to see some struggles because of the situation up front, but I also think you're going to see some plays that really get you excited for next season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're on with Ben McKee, who covers the Vols for 247 Sports. I guess you talked about Nico, but what was your initial reaction when all that came out about Nico's going to play? Joe Milton is now going on to the NFL and preparing for the NFL draft. Because I'm curious, when you reacted, did you think, okay, why did Joe Milton take so long to make his decision?
Yeah, I do think it's a little weird, if I'm being completely honest. Now, this has been a decision that's been in the works for quite some time now, and it was starting to get out around Christmas the last couple of days, and it became more confirmed today than anything. So I do think that this has been something that Tennessee has been preparing for, but with them practicing for the first time today in Orlando, good time to get it out. Josh Heupel met with the media a little while ago, and he was obviously going to get asked that question about who the starting quarterback was going to be. So I think that's why it came out today, just to not give Iowa too much of a head start on preparation, but also it's game week, so you are going to get asked about it at some point. So trying to find that delicate balance of trying to keep Iowa guessing, but also not wanting to give them a week of questions as well, because it's going to become pretty obvious with the media being able to speak to Josh Heupel and multiple players this week. Nico's actually going to speak to the media tomorrow after practice. So I think that's why it came out today, to try and find that balance. But to your original question, I do think it is a little weird, if I'm being completely honest, about my feelings. I understand the business decision, as I detailed earlier in the first question that you asked me, but there is also the natural reaction, and that's when I say it's a little weird to me, because he's not Caleb Williams or Drake May or somebody that's definitively going to go into the first round. And I think if you're not a guaranteed top 5 pick, first round pick, and you're the quarterback of the team, the supposed leader of the team, I do think it's weird that you're not playing in the bowl game in your home city, in your home state, and you still have a lot to prove. Now, again, I get it, the business aspect of it, playing behind a patchwork offensive line, but if Joe came out and played well against one of the best defenses in the country, I think that could also help his draft stock. So just the simple fact that he's not a surefire first round, early round pick, and the quarterback of the team, the supposed leader, I thought it was a little weird in that sense, but I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. I do understand it from the business side of things and from the draft process, that side of it. It is a little weird. There's that natural aspect of it, but that's the day and age of college football that we're living in now.
Yeah. Well, Ben, to your point, though, that could be why it took so long in this decision. I want to go back to something you talked about, Small not playing. Is he not playing because he's entered the portal, he's injured, or he's going to the NFL? Do you know the extent of this?
The expectation is that he's off to the NFL draft, and that's been Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel did put it out officially. One of the last couple of days he put it out officially, but Javari Small has made that decision now for a couple of weeks, and just for whatever reason had not announced it publicly. I don't know. I had heard maybe he was trying to find an agent or something along those lines, but he flirted with all three possibilities of returning for another season, transferring and playing another season of college football, or just taking that next step in life and trying to make a name for himself at the next level, and that's ultimately what he decided to do. So he unless something changes last second, he's not going to play in this bowl game because he's going to prepare for the NFL draft.
Fun question here, though, right before I throw it back to their Mr. B-Hop, and that is, Christmas holidays and everything else. You got any Christmas traditions that you do? I know you have a young family and everything. Kind of let us into your personal right there.
Well, after I saw some highlights of Mr. Blaine Bishop knocking some heads
When I was young.
in the Bay, I mean, I think I've got to. I mean, that's got me fired up for this bowl week of college football.
My legs were shaking.
To watch some Hitman highlights every Christmas to get me fired up for bowl season. But no, my dad always did steaks. I always grilled steaks every Christmas, and that was kind of our family tradition. And that's one these last couple of years as I've gotten my family going. That's something that I like to do as well. Have a nice steak on Christmas Day. That's my biggest tradition. I like watching Christmas Vacation on Christmas Eve every year. My favorite Christmas movie. I love me some good eggnog. So those are some simplistic ones.
Christmas Story I watched 3 times on Christmas Day. Back to back to back.
It's worth it. It's a great Christmas movie.
Awesome movie. Anyway, GoVols 247. Very own Ben McKee joins us here on the show. And it's no coincidence, in my opinion, Ben, that Josh Heupel and Rick Barnes had their programs at least performing at a high level. I was just reading right now where the basketball team is at least number 6 on the AP poll, and this is for the first time in a long time. And, of course, the early National Signing Day showed that the Vols can recruit. They're in the top 15 as far as, like, recruiting classes. I saw where they had Innsworth's very own Ethan Utley, who's supposed to be in 2025, maybe a commitment to the Vols there. Yeah, how equipped are the Vols, first off, to nailing down Tennessee and keeping the top talent in the state, do you think, Ben?
Well, that's a huge priority. Josh Heupel talks about that every chance that he gets. And I do think that we as media members or fans can maybe get caught up on recruiting in state. Yes, that's important. Not trying to say that it's not. But to me, as a fan of pro sports or college team, like, I don't care where the players come from. I don't care if they're from overseas. I don't care if they're from Alaska, Hawaii. Like, just bring me all the good football players, basketball players, baseball players, whatever. Just put them on my team. And I think coaches who don't necessarily have ties to Tennessee don't come in with the mindset of, we have to lock down the state. Obviously, that's nice, and the big-time talents in the state you want to keep in the state. But I think the coaches have more of a different mindset than fans or media members do, and that's just to get the best players from wherever. And I do think that Josh Heupel has done a good job of the good thing about Knoxville and Tennessee is that it touches a lot of states, and it's close to a lot of states that have a lot of football talent. And I think that this staff does a good job of dipping into Georgia and the Atlanta area, Nashville, obviously. Chattanooga is really booming right now. The Carolinas, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. They do a good job of really dipping into a lot of different states. California has been nice to them the last couple of years as well. So I do think that should be the priority rather than – and I know that sounds really simplistic, but, like, there have been coaches in the past at Tennessee who have wanted the 4-star offensive tackle, 5-star offensive tackle in the state of Tennessee for perception. And your offensive line coach doesn't think he's that good, but you want him because he's got the high ranking. And you don't want the negative perception of not getting that 4-star, 5-star in-state offensive lineman. And I think that's when things can go wrong for you. But, again, I'm not trying to discount the state of Tennessee, Nashville, Chattanooga, as you guys know. It's really booming and really developing into the premium high school football landscapes. And there's a lot of talent in Nashville. There's a lot of talent in Chattanooga. This upcoming cycle, I mean, George McIntyre over there at Brentwood Academy, he is target number 1. One of the best quarterbacks in the country, one of the best players in the country, and they have gone all in on him for the last year and a half or so. And he's a big target in the state. You go down there to the Baylor School, Cam Sparks. I mean, there's just talent littered all throughout the state, and Memphis usually has some big-time prospects coming out as well. So it's very important that Tennessee locks down the state, and Josh Heupel and his staff have emphasized that, because if they're not going to, I mean, you're seeing it. Ohio State come into the state, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, all those other teams are willing to come in and steal those prospects. You can't build an entire class off the state of Tennessee, but you can really lay a nice foundation. And you got to make sure the handful of guys that are elite talents coming out each year, you got to make sure they make their way over to Knoxville.
Yeah, I just hate seeing them go down to Tuscaloosa or, someplace else like that where, they are actually pretty competitive. I was out Christmas shopping with my wife, and I ran into Derek Mason, the new appointed coach down at MTSU, and I asked him, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the portal, or do you prefer standing in the living rooms talking to the parents? And he actually said that standing there talking to the parents, developing a program was something that was best for him. So developing the talent by recruiting versus using the portal. We've seen programs like UCLA struggle. We've seen programs like Clemson get the distance basically closed, the gap closed between them pretty much because they don't use the portal. What do you think is the best way to service this program to where it can actually compete for an SEC title, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's through the high school ranks. I think you have to build the foundation of your roster, not only your roster, but the foundation of your roster, your culture, your locker room. All that has to be built through the high school ranks, in my opinion. And some years you're going to need more from the portal, and some years you're going to need less. I think that portal should be utilized to bring in players at a position of need, because obviously things are ever changing in today's college athletics. You don't know if this guy or that guy, whether he's going to be impatient and decide to go elsewhere. You don't know if somebody's going to come calling to an uncle and tell him that he can get this amount of NIL at this school and decide to leave unexpectedly. You don't know if guys are going to blow up and turn into a 3-year player and head off to the draft. I mean, you just don't know. So the portal is great for those reasons, but I just don't think that you can live and die by the portal. And for the biggest reason, I just don't think you can do so from a culture and a locker room and a chemistry standpoint. I think when you're bringing in so many players from the portal year in and year out, that, okay, you may have 1 year where it really hits for you, but I think more often than not, you're going to have years where you struggle just because the culture and the leadership isn't what it needs to be. Whereas if you bring in guys and you make sure your high school evaluations are on point and you develop those guys, your leadership, your culture, your locker room, it's never going to be in a place where it doesn't need to be. And I think Josh Heupel, really, I think all of Tennessee's 3 major coaches right now, Tony Vitello, Rick Barnes, Josh Heupel, I think all of them are doing a great job of developing their roster through the high school ranks. And then you're seeing it right now with Tennessee basketball, developing Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James and Zakai Ziegler and Tobe Awaka, Jonas Adu. And then they had a need on the perimeter, on the wing, to become a better shooting team, a better offensive team. And what they do, they used the portal with the 1 spot or 2 that they had, and they went out and added an elite scorer in Dalton Connect. And he's been able to come in and fit right away and adjust well because the leadership that was already in place. And you're seeing that with Tony Vitello over on the baseball field as well. And you've already seen it from Josh Heupel as well. McCollum Castle's coming in. Keenan Peely only played 1 game because he got hurt, but he was going to be a really effective player for Tennessee. Gabe Judy Lowry. I mean, there's been several transfers come in and thrive because the foundation was built through the high school ranks. And it's not just simply talent. There's so much more that goes into it, as you all know, the leadership aspect of it and the culture within the locker room. It's already where it needs to be, whereas if you're bringing in 20 to 30 guys, there's no telling what your locker room is going to look like. And, again, you may hit on it for a season, but I think more often than not, I think it's going to be a struggle bus just because you're adding a lot of veteran players who at that point in their career, they're either wanting more NIL money or they're trying to get to the league, and I don't know that those type of guys necessarily care about the team success first and foremost. So I do think that Tennessee needs to build through the high school ranks, and I think they're doing a good job of that right now.
Lastly, before we let you go, I guess if you had to compare Joe Milton to a former or current NFL quarterback, who do you think he potentially can be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Cam Newton was the first one to come to mind, but that's just pure body type and specimen. I don't think that Joe Milton is going to be Cam Newton at the next level.
This is what the NFL scouts do. They start saying, okay, he looks and reminds, he got strong arm, big body, can run. He's a little mobile, not like Cam Newton, but so that's why I asked that question. It's kind of hard to put him in a box. I can't really.
Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe if I had some more time to think about it, I could come up with somebody. But I don't know that there is a Joe Milton at the.
What about Joe
next
Flacco?
level.
Since we just watched him, he's old.
Milton's got more mobility than
He got
Flacco.
more mobility.
Yeah.
Okay, but he has the big arm.
And I don't know that the arm strength, maybe in Joe's prime, was what
he got a big
Milton
arm in his
is,
prime.
but I look, no disrespect to Joe Flacco, but I watched him beat up on my Steelers all the time because
he was immobile.
Cast more than necessarily something that he was doing. And again, he's a good NFL quarterback and really was with the Ravens. But I always felt like that was more of what was around him than maybe him just putting the team on his back. I just don't know that there is a guy like Joe Milton at the next level to where you see all the physical traits and it's just a physical specimen. But you don't. It's not that you necessarily think that he's a poor quarterback. It's just that, to me, I just don't know that he has that it factor to where he elevates the guys around him the way that you would like a quarterback to do so. I don't know that he always sees things the way that he needs to see them on a football field, and I wonder how that translates to a more NFL-style offense. So, I mean, maybe like a Cardale Jones from a couple of years ago coming out to where he had all the arm strength in the world, but the it factor and the leadership and the IQ just maybe wasn't exactly what it needed to be, and that held him back more than his physical traits.
I was going to say Josh Dobbs. But anyway, just the guy that can make plays when there's a star around him, like a Justin Jefferson type. But anyway, go to Twitter, @GoVols247 if you want to see more from Ben McKee, and he's been fabulous for us, and we'll catch up to you next week, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, Big Ben.
Appreciate y'all. Happy holidays.
All right.